If we learn to open our hearts, anyone, including the people who drive us crazy, can be our teacher. Good morning, everyone. If you're sitting at the tables, feel free to turn your chairs around for the first half of our service, so you're not with your back to us. On behalf of the entire congregation, I welcome you to the Unitarian Universalist Church of the Shenandoah Valley. I am Kim S. Holbrook, your worship associate for today's service. We wish to acknowledge that we are on the traditional lands of the Shawnee and the Manahoac tribes who lived in this area prior to the arrival of European settlers. We gather with our doubts as well as our convictions, with our fears and our hopes, with our failures and our aspirations, with our sorrows and our joys. Whether you are joining us today for the first time, welcome, or you've been a member of or a friend for many years, we are glad that you are here. Whatever faiths you have known, if any, whatever your background, whoever you are, whomever you love, however you arrived here, you are welcome. Presenting the service today are members of the Right Relations team. Lena Hurt and Robert Hurt have put together this service, and other committee members are Shelley Sela, Linda Gold, Ann Cross, who couldn't be here today, and Tech and Worship Liaison Robert Hurt. So would the Right Relations Committee please stand up? There we go. So they have put this together. It's really quite an interesting service. Also helping are wonderful volunteers, Dottie Cox, Rebecca Allen, Sandra Stocker, Barb Peters, Liz England, Gina Resbeck, and Kim Lorgan, and several other last-minute recruits. Thank you, and I will be your narrator. Now, as Dottie comes forward to light the chalice, let us all say together, here and from our homes, the words for lighting our chalice. In the light of truth and the warmth of love, we gather to seek, to sustain, to share. Thank you, Dottie. And thank you, Sue, for the music. Okay. And I invite you to join with us as we say our covenant. Love is the spirit of this church, the quest for truth its sacrament, to dwell together in peace, to seek the truth in freedom, and to help our neighbor. To these ends, we covenant one with another.
Meditation on Opposites by Alex Capitan. Spirit of the universe, life force that flows through all beings, power beyond our knowing. We ask you to help us to see beyond our dependence on opposites, to transcend our desire to know who is like us and who is not. Open to us the knowledge that in this room, there are complexities and diversities of identities beyond black and white, old and young, man and woman, poor and rich, uneducated and educated, disabled and able-bodied, gay and straight, ill and healthy, wrong and right, broken and whole. In this room, there are people who embody juxtaposition, who can tell stories written on their bodies about both and neither, who carry intimate pieces of truth that there is no such thing as opposites. Spirit of many names and no names at all, help us find release from our belief that all things must be either or. This belief that walls us off from one another, ensnaring us in a battle of same versus different. Help us to open our minds, to deeply listen, and to truly know one another, finally glimpsing the kaleidoscopic beauty of the divine. So the mission of the Right Relations team. Our mission is to facilitate the well-being of the UUCSB community by fostering peaceful relations and transformative communication between members, to be visible and available as a listening ear so that when interpersonal conflict arises, members can seek support and advice before conflict grows. So, the skit we're presenting today was developed by UUA staff members and was part of the curricula of their Right Relations training that was piloted in 2022. Our church members, staff who took part in the training in the pilot form included Lena and Robert Hurt, Reverend Julie Kane, John Latham, Dottie Cox, and then RE Director Rachel Holt Parker. We hope you enjoyed the content and feel inspired to share your reactions with us after the service.
Words for reflection. Today's words for reflection are a point-by-point comparison between punitive or patriarchal and restorative philosophies. These are based on work by Howard Zehr, a Quaker from Harrisonburg, considered to be the father of restorative justice. And we feel that the restorative perspective may be more consistent with our UU values, much more consistent. So starting from the punitive side, we would ask, if there was an issue, we would ask, who is to blame and how do we fix it?
From the restorative side, we ask, how do we restore and establish right relationship?
From the punitive side, the approach is almost always adversarial.
From the restorative side, the approach is mutual and supportive, asking, how can we work together?
Authority determines punishment.
We work together in ways that are mutual and supportive.
The receiver or person harmed has little voice in the process and may not even know the outcome.
On the other hand, consequences are worked out in collaboration with the actor, the person harmed to the extent that they prefer, and any impacted members of the community.
Punishment tends to isolate and to shame. The lens is narrow.
Accountability is held by the community as a whole and is focused on repairing the harm and restoring relationship. The lens is wide.
Punishment is often kept secret. There is no restoration of trust with members of the community.
How the harm is repaired becomes part of the healing story for those involved.
The individual is punished, while context and system are ignored.
We all consider the whole picture, including systems issues.
Punishments become standardized by offense and rarely take the larger situation into account.
Consequences are individualized to the specific situation, including the actor, recipient, and context.
And now we present a case study, as you heard, developed by the Unitarian Universalist Association staff and adapted by our Right Relations team and made into a skit entitled, "What's Going On?" We will not have a breakout session between the acts as in the order of service, but we will have it at the end of the skit. And so we'll have our actors come forward. Once upon a time, there was a congregation full of a lot of well-meaning but very human people. One year, they experienced a lot of changes. Sound familiar? The congregation experienced an increase in adult membership, but they also experienced a change in demographics. Their new family ministry initiative brought in several new families with children and youth of all ages. Sadly, in the same time period, a number of longtime affluent members moved out of the area, and some of them unfortunately died. Members Jean and Evan, not to be confused with our Evan, ran an energetic pledge drive. They will be able to get 95% participation among the members and active friends, including all the new families. But the total pledge amount was still $15,000 short compared to the previous year. In their report to the board, Jean and Evan noted that they had lost more than half of the donors from the upper quartile of giving from the previous year. Now we're in the library. At the Finance Committee meeting, Pat, the finance chair, began.
So here's the budget we created last month based on last year's income. The pledge line will need to be reduced by $15,000 now that we have the actual pledge numbers.
Tracy, another longtime member of the Finance Committee, pointed to the line item for the Director of Family Ministry and said,
Well, we can easily balance this budget if we just cut this position by 50%. We funded it in the first place because it was supposed to grow the church. But look at these numbers. We're going backwards.
Terry, who was new to the Finance Committee, said,
Well, the membership committee has said that our membership numbers are up overall. I think we can all trust our observations and acknowledge that the growth has come from all the families and younger people who have been coming, especially in the past year. It takes time for new members and young families to pledge at the levels of the older generation. I know that's how it is. At least it was for me and my family, especially when we became empty nesters.
Jordan, another longtime member, chimed in.
We've had similar budget shortfalls in the past. Mine wasn't on?
Yours was on.
Thank you, Evan.
Thank you, our Evan.
We've had several budget shortfalls in the past. We also will have some money rolling over from the current year's budget. So if we include that, it's only a $5,000 shortfall, not $15,000. Our cash donation line is a little conservative, and we have a new fundraiser planned for the coming year. Let's make those adjustments and send it to the board for approval.
The Finance Committee went back and forth and back and forth and back and forth and back and forth for a good 2 hours. Finally, Pat blurted out,
We need to get the budget to the board next week. I'm stopping discussion. Let's vote.
well, the vote to accept the budget with the adjusted income line items barely passed, 3 for and 2 against, with Tracy and Danny voting against. After the meeting, Tracy and Danny met in the parking lot and grumbled about the vote.
This is financial mismanagement.
We need to let people know about this.
Act 2, the phone call. Later that night, Tracy called Carrie, who had been the congregational president and finance chair a couple of decades past.
The current finance committee is living in a dream world. They think money grows on trees.
Don't worry, I have a plan.
Next to the restaurant, the next day, Carrie met with several other retirees at their weekly breakfast and told the others,
It looks like a sinking ship, folks. Our congregation's becoming a sinking ship. Would you please sign this petition? It's for the board. And we want to get them to reject this outlandish, ridiculous budget. We might also threaten to withhold our pledges if they don't cut back on these staff hours and expenses and balance the budget.
and the attendees readily agree, nodding their heads and signing the agreement. Danny went home. Now we're at the Women's Spirit Group luncheon, and Danny went home and told her partner Alex about what had happened. He had been a volunteer director of religious education when their children were young, back in the late 1980s. When she met with her Women's Spirit Group a few days later, she said,
all of our money is going to this newfangled director of I don't know what. What even is this job? All I know is that they're spending way too much time in the Sunday service and not enough time in class where they belong.
That's been bothering me for a long time, too. Let's write a letter to the RE committee so that they can get the kids back into classes where they belong so we can enjoy our service again.
and this is where the skit ends. So good job, everyone. Thank you. And now it's your turn. Please take a few minutes to share your impressions with whatever group you can find, whether it's at the table or in the chairs. Here are the questions to get you started. What's working here? What's not working? What would help? And what's your most important takeaway? So I'm going to repeat that one more time. What's working here? What's not working? What would help? And what's your most important takeaway? I will give you some time for discussion and a 2-minute warning to wrap up your discussions. Please select a speaker to share your reactions to the skit with the committee. The speaker needs to make a brief review of the main takeaways from your group. And so begin. They are to write your notes on, yes, and it will be given to the Right Relations Committee, I believe. What? Oh, good. Okay, you can read right in. Okay. Okay. Thank you, everyone, for participating. I know it's a little confusing about what to talk about, but hopefully you got some good ideas and some good comments. And we're going to start with Liz. Lizzie? What?
Our group over here is going to start.
Okay. The table back in the back is going to start. Sorry.
So, okay, is it on?
It's on. Just stand up.
Okay, what, we came up with what's working. Okay,
Put it right up there.
active finance committee, what's working? They have an active finance committee that's functioning. And they also seem to have a variety of active social groups. They do have a DRE, or whatever the skit called that person, for the growing families, and they seem to have had a successful drive to bring in new families, and so their congregation is growing.
Okay.
What's not working, gossip. That's probably like the overriding issue. What's not working, bringing issues to non-leadership members, not following existing lines of decision-making. What would help, congregants bringing concerns to the board or the finance committee, as opposed to non-leadership members. If the finance committee would lay out multiple solutions for the shortfall and bring those to the board, not just vote on one single one, and publicize the issues to the congregation by the board and stimulate discussion of the issues in the open. Then the takeaway, make sure the congregation knows the effective channels to communicate their issues, and use a variety of communication strategies to reach all people.
Excellent, thank you. All right. Okay. Yep. We will gather your notes up if you don't mind. Okay, Charlie.
Okay. Really to start with on what's working, we felt that, even they went into a very long discussion on the finance and issues, and they did come up with some suggestions on try to minimize the difference that was there. But what seemed to not be working was that as soon as they got out of the meeting, they went off to their different little sidebars, and with it, they had discussions without the full story. And then that information they got from the sidebars never came back to the finance committee, so they couldn't act on that. And also, there seemed to be some information that was misleading in the communication, so they couldn't come up with the right finance conclusions. And with all this, people started getting irritated and started threatening to do different things, like taking away their pledges if it didn't go their way. And ultimately, it seemed like the finance committee never came back together to work on any of this. They just ended and said, this is what we're going forward with based on our vote. What would help would be if the leader of the finance committee had brought everybody back together to try to get all of these ideas that were presented at the sidebars and to come back with more information on the situation, plus rely on some of the older congregants who've been there longer on how each of the positions work that were affected by the budget. And essentially, people needed to just dial it down a little bit and not start threatening so quickly. Just take it a step back and think about what they're about to say.
Excellent, thank you. Oh, that parking lot.
Okay, all right.
That's never happened around here.
Is this okay? Everybody can hear me?
Yeah, hold it right in front of your mouth.
Pardon? Close over to my mouth
Yeah,
like this?
that's good.
Okay, good. I'm not sure that we got into the detail as you guys did. I think we took this more general, as far as, what.
It's fine.
When we really got into what's not working and what would help. What was working, I thought the finance committee did a really good job of dealing with the situation as it was. They had the facts and they had some good conversation about those facts. What's not working is that when people started taking things personally, he had a perfect word. People got into factions, and once you get into factions, really good decisions can't be made because everybody feels like they're standing on their own ground, and things get personal. A couple of things that would help. We thought the perfect phrase was open, non-combative communication. Because when you don't have that, then there can't be any really good solutions. Another interesting thing that was brought up, and I think we all have to kind of remember that, we elect leaders and we have to trust those leaders. Okay, all right, and that's it.
Thank you. All right, good.
All right, so for us, we found that what was working is the Finance Committee did have different perspectives and a range of people from different parts of the community of the church, and that they also put in a good long time on the discussion. Although what's not working, it probably could have been a little more efficient. That's a long time to discuss a budget. They didn't come to a consensus even after all of that discussion. They only looked at revenue without looking at other places that maybe they could look at cutting expenses. They were ignoring the needs of new members with young families. They had no contingency plan on some of these things like the new fundraiser. What if that didn't work and it didn't bring in the money? And they had silos of opinion with the different groups in the church instead of working together as a community. So what would help? We suggested starting sooner so that you allowed more time to come to a compromise among the members. They could have communicated with the board the context of the discussion, not just the numbers and the final decision, to give the board an idea of what the issues were. They could possibly propose new structures of pledging. For example, for young families, maybe it would be easier, instead of a one-time annual giving, have a monthly type of giving of smaller amounts to spread it out over the year. They also could have looked at multiple expense lines to find other ways that maybe they could trim expenses to meet their budgets. So our takeaway was we recommended they should do a town hall format to include everyone in the congregation so that you're not having these silos and these cliques discussing things in small groups. We also thought that they should ask everyone then to commit to respecting and supporting the final vote that came in on it. And that there needs to also make sure that there's a formal avenue for any concerns to be expressed in multiple ways.
Excellent, again. Thank you.
A lot of the ideas are out there. We're pretty smart kids here. The one thing we noticed right off the bat in terms of what's working is everybody seems to care. Everybody seems to be invested in the budget in the church. The Finance Committee had long discussions, and obviously they care. They're meeting on their own time to try to plan the finances of the church. And even the little splinter groups obviously do care because they're taking time and energy to discuss these issues, even though they may not be doing it in a constructive, positive way. What's not working, the different splinter groups are communicating around each other. They're not communicating with the whole body. They're not relating the information back to the Finance Committee, back to the Board of Directors, back to RE to get input and try to figure out where we could make decisions and changes that might benefit the whole body instead of one person's ideas or pet projects. The discussion in the Finance Committee seems to be cut off. There's a lot of discussion, but then it seems to be cut off really quickly at the end without much collaboration about how we would finish up the discussion and when we would come to a vote. And then the budget, we were talking about, does that really reflect the needs of the church? The RE director was targeted and cut in this budget plan. And the question I had was, do the individual Sunday school teachers, are they independent and really doing it all on their own? And maybe the RE head is a figurehead that really doesn't do much, and that salary is superfluous. Or is this person a dynamic leader who's gathering content and really planning programs for the kids and wrangling volunteers to teach classes, and she's an integral part of the whole church? So we felt like there's lots of different things that we could do better. The takeaway is we need more communication. We need more open communication, more communication across groups, not the little splinter groups. That's how you have a schism in your church. We've seen that in real life. So we need to avoid that type of thing. The other thing is, one of the big issues is some people are conflict averse. They don't like to talk about things that are contentious. They fear disagreement and outcomes that don't go their way. One of the things I brought up is some people are not conflict averse and they're willing to have these discussions, and we need to try to get people to work with their strengths and have the discussions for the whole group so they come together.
Thank you, Evan. All right.
Okay, for us, what was not working, no, wait a minute, what's working? We felt that the whole finance committee in that long period of time, everybody did have a chance to talk, voice their opinions, and have a communication about the budget and the decisions. What's not working, there were no solutions to the shortfall other than cutting. So there was a lack of communication in the groups and the factions. That is a great word. They were breaking out into factions, which creates a very contentious environment. We felt the committee should have asked for input from the congregation before making any of these type decisions, since it affects the congregation. What would help? We thought if the finance committee had asked for input from the congregation or from the board, and if they had a short deadline, it would have been helpful for them to start meeting sooner so that they didn't have what might have been a self-imposed deadline, and then have the congregation give them the opportunity to prioritize and have input on the priorities. And the most important takeaway that we had was really, they really should have had, or it would have been great if they had gone to the Right Relations Committee and asked for a moderator to help moderate this, what was a very important decision. And that, which has been said before, when you have a climate where people are breaking away in little groups without communicating with each other, then that is a problem.
Great idea. Okay.
Okay, what's working, we felt like there was good participation among the group. The first thing that we thought of with not working was that the committee should be trusted. They were voted in. We should trust them to do the job and not question it, especially not in other arenas. And we talked about, the main thing we came up with was, what is the process for when you're not happy with what your committee has decided on? And what?
Yeah.
Sorry about that. What should a committee do when they're not really comfortable with what's decided on? To me, the vote was too close. It wasn't a consensus. It should have been unanimous or more. And we also felt like perhaps it should have been tabled because there wasn't, it was still, not really a good, solid, positive or negative vote. And so we thought maybe it should be tabled. Maybe you should go to the board and tell them we need more time, or, things like that. That's what we talked about. So one of the things we came up with was we felt like the committee should have in place written guidelines about how they proceed during a committee meeting and what they normally do. What tools do they have to know how to handle this kind of situation so it's resolved before anybody wants to go out and talk about it separately. So the rules of the committee should hopefully help that a whole lot.
Okay, thank you. Okay, if you have some comments that have already been stated, try to focus on those that haven't, if you can. Go ahead.
A lot of ours are the same as everybody else's. I think that's, everybody came to obvious conclusions, but what's working, they have a committee. They're working on the budget. What's not working, didn't seem to be consensus before a decision was reached. There was a lot of speaking outside of the work group. That wasn't very helpful. Liz, outside leader, troublemaker, complainer. Expertise offered after the fact, a lot of blaming, a lot of judgment, and there seemed to be a distinct lack of trust among members. What would help? Expertise, but room for new perspectives. What I like to say is you don't have to reinvent the wheel. Look for guidance from other communities in a similar situation. Other people have gone through this. They came up with solutions that could apply to this particular situation. And try and find a compromise. Our takeaway was resolution is a compromise. Everybody gets something. Leadership is what guides you to that compromise. It's a skill. Not everybody has it. And everybody needs to be heard, so.
Excellent, thank you. Okay. Okay.
So our group went about this a little bit differently because that's how we roll. What we found is working is is the group, the
Right relations?
the Right Relations
Yes.
Committee.
That's what they're there for.
It was a great skit, started a good discussion, it was really creative, and the, one of our members said the issues are both timely and timeless, which I really liked. Being proactive is the way to go, and typically, though, there's too little discussion with the people that are actually involved in the decision-making. However, if the methodology is explained, generally there's a consensus that that's the right way to go. And so trusting the folks that we have in our committees and stuff is a good thing to do. If we don't trust the people that are on our committees, we would challenge people to get on those committees and be a part of that. Budget committee is so much fun, yeah. And also to remember that not everyone is going to be 100% happy with any decision. We rule by the democratic process, and the majority does have, but we do have a way to say, as we used to say in the military, but sir, have you considered this? And, pardon me for the gender specific issue, but that's how we that's how we did it in the military. But we have to respect the process and the people actively working while being comfortable expressing our differing views to the appropriate people. People need to talk with each other to solve problems and disagreements. And as a few people have already said, the faction system rarely works.
All right.
It's all been said.
Just in different words, right, Henry?
I ditto Henry, but I will say that as far as our most important takeaway is to step back from expressing how we feel and listen and work with others who have different opinions or visions within the framework of right relations and come up with solutions, as others have said, that we may not like entirely, but we like mostly.
All right. Move on now to the offering. One of the purposes of the church is to encourage all who gather to grow more generous in spirit and in action. We will now gratefully receive an offering to sustain this self-supporting church and its ministries within and beyond our walls. If you happen to be watching online, we hope that you will consider making an offering through our webpage, uushenandoah.org. If you're visiting with us today, you are a welcome guest. Please feel free to let the basket pass you by. And let me just say thank you, everyone, for participating. This is why we have a Right Relations Committee. If there are issues, please seek them out. Okay.
Now we have some words of reflection. Thank you. To conclude, we'd like to share another point-by-point comparison. This was taken from a book excerpt on the UUA website entitled Toward an Understanding of Faithful Response by Patricia H. Impossible to pronounce.
Howard do our few.
We,
Think.
oh, you got it?
Howard do our few.
Good. We selected it because it defines the qualities of successful work teams as concluded by Google in their Project Aristotle. Paradoxically, Google's intense data collection and number crunching ultimately led to the same conclusions that good managers have always known. In the best teams, members listen to one another and show sensitivity to feelings and needs. They create psychological safety. So now we're going back and forth. I'm the not safe person. Shelley is the safe person. Okay, so this is not psychological safety on my side here. People say anything they want to.
With psychological safety, people are comfortable sharing their thoughts and feelings.
People let their emotions go as they please.
People People express concerns, they ask questions, they listen and demonstrate empathy.
Well, people take a laissez-faire approach. Anything goes.
Tasks are allocated evenly. Mentoring and coaching is provided when needed or wanted.
Meetings and/or conversation are free of any inner discomfort.
People feel at ease and are calm.
People take risks, simply hoping for the best.
Problems are addressed. Risk-taking is measured after opinions and options are reviewed.
Be safe.
Please rise in body or spirit as we sing hymn number 1021 in the teal hymnal, Lean on Me. You may not need the hymnal, but... First two verses only, since we're running late. 1021. Boy, that was lively. And short, that's good. Okay, as Dottie comes forward, let us all say together here and from our homes the words for extinguishing our chalice. We extinguish this flame, but not the light of truth, the warmth of our community, or the fire of commitment. These we carry in our hearts until we meet again. The closing words today come from Buddhist nun Pema Chodron. To stay with a broken heart, with a rumbling stomach, with the feeling of hopelessness and wanting to get revenge. This is the path of true awakening. Sticking with the uncertainty, getting the knack of relaxing in the midst of chaos, learning not to panic, this is the spiritual path. And thank you for coming today. I'm sorry it went a little bit long, but we really appreciate everybody's participation. Have a great week. Thank you.
I was going to do a quick reprise of Lean on Me, but in honor.